We'll begin with the breaking story coming out of the United States, where a federal judge has overturned the Trump administration's funding cuts to Harvard University.
In a dramatic legal showdown, one of America's most prestigious universities has faced off against the most polarizing president in modern history and won. A federal judge has overturned President Donald Trump's decision to strip Harvard University of nearly $2 billion in federal research funding, ruling that the administration violated the Ivy League school's First Amendment rights. The case isn't just about money, it's about academic freedom, the role of government in education, and whether politics should decide who gets to pursue knowledge. For Trump, the cuts were a strike against what he called radical left indoctrination. For Harvard, it was a fight for survival and principle. This is the story of how a funding freeze became a constitutional battle, why it matters far beyond Harvard's ivy-covered walls, and what comes next. Chapter 1. The Seeds of Conflict. Donald Trump's relationship with elite universities has always been fraught. From the campaign trail to the Oval Office, he frequently portrayed Ivy League institutions as elitist, biased, and hostile to conservative values. Harvard, the oldest and wealthiest university in the United States, became a particular target. By 2023, tensions boiled over. The Trump administration accused Harvard of harboring anti-Semitism, promoting radical left ideology, and failing to confront racial bias. As part of a sweeping crackdown, the administration froze billions in federal research grants, hitting Harvard hardest with a staggering $2 billion loss. This wasn't just about punishing one university, it was symbolic. Trump wanted to send a message that no institution was too powerful to escape his reach. Harvard, with its immense endowment and global reputation, represented everything Trump's base distrusted about elite America. But while Trump saw the freeze as a political victory, Harvard saw an existential threat. Federal research funding wasn't a luxury. It was the backbone of medical breakthroughs, climate research, and national security projects. Without it, the university risked losing its position as a world leader in science and innovation. Chapter 2. Why $2 billion mattered. Critics often pointed out that Harvard had a nearly $50 billion endowment, the largest of any university in the world. So why was $2 billion in federal funding such a big deal? The truth is that most of Harvard's endowment is restricted, earmarked for scholarships, specific programs, or long-term investments. It cannot simply be redirected to cover research. Federal grants, on the other hand, fund ongoing projects in medicine, engineering, and technology. Harvard researchers work closely with agencies like the National Institutes of Health, the National Science Foundation, and even the Department of Defense. These partnerships produce not just academic papers, but innovations that shape society, new cancer treatments, advances in renewable energy, and cybersecurity tools used by the U.S. government. Cutting $2 billion meant halting clinical trials, suspending labs, and laying off researchers. Thousands of graduate students who relied on grants for their work faced uncertainty. In essence, the freeze threatened to silence the engine of discovery that Harvard represented. Chapter 3. Harvard goes to court. Unlike Columbia, Penn, and Brown, which quietly negotiated compromises with the Trump administration to preserve their funding, Harvard chose confrontation. Its lawyers filed suit in federal court, arguing that the administration's actions were unconstitutional. Their case rested on two pillars. First Amendment violation. Harvard claimed the cuts were retaliation for speech and academic inquiry protected under the Constitution. Universities, they argued, must be free to explore controversial ideas without fear of government punishment. Separation of powers. Funding decisions, Harvard argued, were the domain of Congress, not the president. Trump had overstepped his authority by using executive power to dictate which universities received money. The case quickly gained national attention. It wasn't just about Harvard, it was about whether a president could use federal funding as a weapon to reshape higher education. Chapter 4. Judge Burroughs' Landmark Ruling. Presiding over the case was Judge Allison Burroughs, a Boston-based federal judge appointed by Barack Obama. After months of hearings, she issued her decision. Harvard had won. In an 84-page ruling, Burroughs declared that the Trump administration's freeze was unlawful and unconstitutional. She wrote, "The court vacates and sets aside the freeze orders and termination letters as violative of the First Amendment." Her ruling was nuanced. She acknowledged that anti-Semitism had plagued Harvard in recent years and criticized the university for not acting more decisively. But she made clear that the government's true motive was ideological punishment, not genuine concern for students. She called the administration's actions a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on this country's premier universities. With that, she blocked the funding cuts and ordered the government to continue honoring existing grants. Chapter 5. The White House Strikes Back. The response from the Trump administration was swift and furious. Officials denounced the ruling as judicial activism, accusing Burroughs of protecting liberal elites. Assistant Press Secretary Liz Houston declared, "Harvard does not have a constitutional right to taxpayer dollars and remains ineligible for grants in the future." Trump himself took to Truth Social, blasting Harvard as a radical left indoctrination factory and vowing to appeal the decision. He claimed the ruling was proof that America's courts were biased against him and promised to take the fight to the Supreme Court. Behind the rhetoric, the administration explored other punitive measures, revoking Harvard's tax-exempt status, seizing patents developed with federal funding, and tightening oversight of university research. The message was clear. The battle was far from over. Chapter 6. Harvard's Victory and Its Costs. Inside Harvard Yard, the ruling was met with celebration but also caution. University President Alan Garber hailed the decision as a defense of academic freedom, saying, "The ruling affirms Harvard's First Amendment and procedural rights. We will continue to assess the implications of the opinion, monitor further legal developments, and remain mindful of the changing landscape in which we seek to fulfill our mission." Researchers breathed a sigh of relief as projects could resume, and graduate students regained stability. But the scars of the fight remained. The university had been thrust into the political spotlight, accused of elitism and radicalism, and forced to defend its values on a national stage. Harvard also faced a moral reckoning. Judge Burroughs' criticism of its slow response to anti-Semitism underscored the need for reforms. The university pledged to expand programs combating discrimination, improve support systems for Jewish students, and reaffirm its commitment to diversity. Chapter 7. Ivy League Divisions and the Question of Compromise. Harvard's decision to fight set it apart from other Ivy League institutions. Columbia, Pennsylvania, and Brown chose negotiation, striking deals with the Trump administration to preserve funding in exchange for stricter oversight. Critics accused them of capitulation, arguing they had sacrificed principle for money. Supporters defended the deals as pragmatic, saying they protected students and researchers from political fallout. Harvard's victory in court now cast those compromises in a different light. By standing firm, Harvard not only preserved its funding, but also established a legal precedent that could protect other universities in the future. The episode revealed a broader divide in academia. When faced with political pressure, do institutions compromise for survival or resist for freedom? Chapter 8. Anti-Semitism as a Political Weapon. One of the most contentious aspects of the case was the role of anti-Semitism. The Trump administration claimed its funding freeze was motivated by a desire to combat hatred on campus. Judge Burroughs, however, concluded that anti-Semitism was used as a political tool, not a genuine concern. This raised troubling questions. Jewish students had indeed reported incidents of harassment and exclusion at Harvard. Yet, by using their experiences as a pretext for a broader political agenda, the administration risked trivializing real struggles. The ruling highlighted a paradox. Universities must do more to address anti-Semitism, but governments cannot weaponize hate as a justification for ideological crackdowns. Chapter 9. Political Stakes for Trump. For Donald Trump, the Harvard battle was more than a legal dispute. It was a political strategy. By targeting America's most famous university, he reinforced his populist narrative. Elites are corrupt, academia is radical, and only he can hold them accountable. The appeal to the Supreme Court is part of this strategy. With a conservative majority, including 3 justices he appointed, Trump hopes for a more favorable ruling that could expand presidential power. But the risks are high. Critics argue that by politicizing research funding, Trump undermines science, jeopardizes America's global competitiveness, and erodes the independence of higher education. Whether seen as a crusader against elitism or a bully attacking knowledge, Trump has ensured the Harvard case will remain a defining moment of his presidency. Chapter 10: The Future of Academic Freedom. The Harvard ruling raises questions that go far beyond Cambridge. If presidents can cut funding based on ideology, no university is safe. Today it is Harvard. Tomorrow it could be any institution that falls out of political favor. Federal research grants fund not just universities, but the nation's scientific progress, technological leadership, and medical breakthroughs. If politics dictates where that money goes, the independence of American research collapses. For now, Harvard's victory is a shield, but the battle is not over. An appeal to the Supreme Court could reshape the landscape again. At stake is more than money. It is the principle that knowledge must remain free from political control, that universities must answer to truth, not to presidents. Judge Allison Burroughs' ruling in favor of Harvard is a landmark moment in the ongoing clash between politics and academia. It affirms that while universities must address hate and discrimination, they cannot be punished for their ideas. But the fight is far from over. The Trump administration is appealing, and the Supreme Court may yet weigh in. The future of academic freedom and billions in research funding hangs in the balance. So, what do you think? Should government funding come with political strings attached, or should universities remain fully independent? Let us know in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more deep dive documentaries.